Good morning, and thanks for joining us. This is the DMZ America podcast for Thursday, March 26th. Coming to you from the left, I'm editorial cartoonist Ted Rall.
And coming to you from the crumbling, ill-defined, undefinable right, I'm Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, and our guest today.
And joining us today is Mr. Fish. He's, for people who are regular viewers of the DMZ America podcast, we had him on a little bit ago. And quite frankly, when Scott and I were trying to think who we wanted to have join us today, we were like, Fish was great. Let's just have him back, and because we just had a good time. And the audience liked you, and it was a good chat. So we figured, there's no agenda here. We're not going to put you on the spot. We're just
please put me on the spot.
We can put you on the spot. I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to. I don't even have any dish on you. I can't put you on the spot.
Make sure. When did that stop any podcast ever?
True. Good point. So anyway, thanks for joining us, Fish. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So, as always, we're going to, show some of our recent cartoons and talk about those a little bit. But I guess I thought we would start out by just sort of talking about the state of the world. These seem like we're living in especially fraught times with, we're now in week 4 of this war. I'm 62 years old. I've never lived. I've seen a lot of wars. They always start popular and then become less popular. This one's starting out unpopular. Is that really weird to you the way it is to me?
Yeah. I mean, you put this in historic context. You really can't. I'm trying to think of one that has started off this unpopular, because the president didn't do any of the due diligence that a president usually does, which is they're the enemy, they're the bad guys, they're the Hun, we need to get them, they're out to get us, we've got to get them before they get us. I mean, go down through history, there's really not a war that ever started like nobody really wanted to begin with. And now we're at the stage where it's like, we're going to end it, we're going to declare victory. And yet he's sending, clearly he's planning some form of boots on the ground. I mean, this is nuts.
Let's also be clear about when you say due diligence, done by an administration or a president to justify an invasion, that is then classified as a war. If you just look at the most recent attempts at that, the due diligence was also built off of the most ridiculous kind of propaganda. There were no real facts. There was, fear mongering, and there was all the stuff that justifies that sort of nonsense. And what I think that the difference here is everything is becoming truncated and turned into completely thoughtless, immediate action. And so I don't know. I mean, to try to get into Trump's head or any of his toadies that surround him, why this was important. Obviously, people are saying, I think quite correctly, that a lot of it has to do with the Epstein stuff, and also the popularity of Trump heading into midterms. If you want to talk about, historical events from the past, what's the one thing, arguably, what saved George W. Bush's, not being a one-term president? He had a war. He had, all of a sudden, there is that the warning that it's very dangerous to invite a new president in when we are at war, and I think that that's part of this strategy here, but it's all done so sloppily because Trump is
sloppy
in it for himself. There's no protocol. You can see he can say everything is what I don't even want to say thinks and feels every day, because I think he does neither. I think that just the impulsive megalomania that he demonstrates constantly has no strategy, and we can see what the result of that is, not just with the Iran thing, but also everything else, straight down to just like what he did in the first term with the environment, with the Environmental Protection Agency and so forth, and all the dismantling that he has done. It's all very sinister, and again, it's all in service of his idea of what an emperor should look like and be.
Yeah, I just want to read what I meant by due diligence. I think you touched on that he didn't sell it to the American people. We've been sold a bill of goods. I didn't say it wasn't bullshit.
Right.
I just say that they didn't do it. I mean, we learned, and I was suckered. I mean, Ted can tell you that I, been mea culpaing ever since on the invasion of Iraq. I bought into the bullshit, and that was last time that's going to happen. I hope until
next time.
Melody kicks in. Yeah. Until next time. Exactly. Let me ask you guys something too. I really want to hear from both of you on the Atlantic. The Atlantic this week had an article that says the one word that describes Trump, and they've been covering the issues well. I think the Atlantic Monthly, and they've really been loath to use the F word to describe this president. This word, I wish that's closer to the word fascist. And I've been one of those as well during the George W. Bush administration. He's a fascist, he's a Nazi. I said, no, fascists are fascists, Nazis are Nazis. This guy, is what he is. But I have to kind of agree with the Atlantic. We're at that point where we can call this guy a fascist. And I know your politics. I know that we're cartoonists, so we're prone to hyperbole. But I mean, I think we're there. Are we there? I would love to hear what you guys think.
Fascism was my area of concentration in college as a history major at Columbia. And my professor, Robert O. Paxton, was my thesis advisor. He's wrote a number of books on fascism, including Vichy France, which is the book, even in France, right, written by a non-Frenchman. It's considered the book about Vichy. And The Anatomy of Fascism is a book that I think it's his masterwork. I would recommend it to anyone. So I spent a lot of time. Also, to brag about, I was one of the few people who ever got an A in his fascism seminar ever. And it's like who's kind of like famous, like you can take the class, you're probably not going to get an A. You might want to know that up front.
I just think it's kind of curious that you're bragging that you got an A in fascism.
Well, honestly, he was a tough, really fantastic professor. But that said, so up until recently, I didn't think that that Trumpism really kind of met some core criteria for fascism, and mainly the sort of need for there's a scapegoat of some sort of minority under traditional, like for example, under Nazism, obviously they scapegoated Jews and other sort of targets of the regime. Famously, right, in the United States, but immigrants kind of fit that for the second term of Donald Trump more than in the first term. What was really missing was military expansionism and militarism, because Trump famously projected himself as being reticent and being opposed to stupid wars. And so I was like, well, you're not going to be able to get to true fascism without this, without the militarization of society. We're obviously beyond that now. And if you look at the traditional components of, for example, the Italian fascist model, which the Germans followed up on too, which is the merger of the private corporations with governmental interests. We've seen that in this second Trump term accelerate at a dramatic pace. And it's not just through the settlements with colleges and universities like UPenn and Columbia University and Harvard, but also the big law firms, but also all the big companies donating to Trump's inauguration. All that. I think the point is, I could go on and on here. Yeah. I think we are arriving at very traditional mid-century 20th century models of fascism, far beyond where I would have expected it. I think we're there. I think we've
Wow.
I think we've arrived. I think the militarization of the streets with ICE in airports they're going to be in front of voting booths if there are elections this fall. You know,
the
surveillance state being like not something that's kept as a secret as it was under Obama and had to be exposed by Snowden, but something that they're bragging about. The rampant authoritarianism, the bullying in the courts, in the media and social media and so on. Yeah, I think this is now becoming a fascist state.
I agree. And I think that also, I would have said, if you asked me this 8 months ago, I would have said it was. Mostly because I saw the atmosphere shifting in such a way that it was going to be hard to pull back from it becoming what it has become. Because remember, when it comes to, you know, where does fascism come from? You know, where does authoritarianism, how does it establish itself? What it requires is a population that will, in essence, almost invite it in. You know, a population that will downgrade its own sense of agency and purpose and so forth to allow this illusion that this single person or a small cadre of people have the power to control them. You know, it's more a reflection to me of a broken population more than the super heroism, you know, venal and evil as it is, coming from these people who have power that manifests as great, as some form of greatness. Now, if we look at what was, again, leading up to where we are now, just the MAGA movement, you know, these people who have simplified a narrative, made it, you know, jingoistic and nationalistic to a point of real demonstrating, again, what led into Nazi Germany. This stuff it didn't come out of nowhere, you know. So again, I saw it happening. I started to name it as such, hoping to get conversations where people are like, no, it's not fascism yet. Why is it not fascism yet? And it's the same argument that I would try to get going with what happened in Gaza, what started to happen in Gaza, where the debate over that was just like, okay, it's mass killing, but it's not genocide. Let's go to the dictionary and see what genocide is. That's going to define what it is. But, you know, the targeting of a specific group of people, killing them or forcing them to leave occupied land it's, you know, again, you have to have those conversations. So I think as cartoonists, that's one of our responsibilities, is what is this really about? You know, what should we really be, what kind of questions should we really be asking? And the one thing that I would love to get your guys' opinion on is, and all of us have been doing this now for a while. And one of the frustrations that I have is that exaggeration is no longer a tool that we can use in our arsenal.
Yeah.
You know, because at one time you could say the president is essentially saying that he can do whatever he wants. He can just take Cuba, you know. And even if that's what the president at that time was thinking, wasn't saying it, and then the president would be sort of almost, it's just like, whoa, you've tarnished now the office, the Oval Office. So now we have to respond, and now we have to have a conversation. Trump just says it, you know. And so what are we supposed to do? We're stuck in this place now as cartoonists, looking for metaphors to explain a reality that has gone off the rails. But it's so blatantly going off the rails. It's just, I mean, I find myself literally sometimes just drawing what is really true. With debate and somebody about that.
Hey, before we answer that, Fish, I wanted to get back. You said something that I love this phrase, and I'm going to steal it. The broken population. Because I was writing down questions as you're answering. And my question was, why do upwards of 30% think it's at least think that all of this is okay? And you described it as a broken population. Yeah. The only way I can put this is, what the fuck happened? I'm serious. It's like, you had a generation that thought fascism was, you know, bad. And now we have a population, large number of them, people my age in their 60s. What the fuck happened? How do you explain this? Can you, is it a simple explanation, or?
I think you can try. I mean, I think that one of the things that we have to look at, and I think we talked a little bit about this last time I was on, was the elimination of the middle class. Now, that's a whole different kind of a conversation. Is that true, or are people who actually reside in the middle class think that they are not in the middle class anymore, that they're in the upper lower class, right? And now, if you have that,
it used to be like in the 90s, there were polls that showed that every American basically thought they were middle class, whether they were wealthy or poor or in between.
Right. And so the reason I often want to talk about the middle class is because traditionally that's where movements are built and sustained. That's where artists typically reside, because they can commit a certain amount of time and energy to their art form and be able to take a shitty job to support that vocation. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened to Scott.
He signaled something. Like, I thought I saw like a shadow of ice cross his window.
May very well have happened.
Right. So just getting back to that, just before I lose that train of thought, I think that what happens for a popular movement to be activated and then become something of a threat to the power structure, it has to feel like it can succeed. It has to feel like it's not alone, right? And I think that more and more people have been duped into thinking that they're alone, or that they live a life that is precarious enough that if they misbehave, they will be penalized, and all of a sudden feel the real agony of losing your job, your social standing, and all this. You'll be a pariah, right? A lot of the communication coming out of an authoritarian system is that if you step out of line, there will be repercussions, and we see them being demonstrated now. I'm flying out to LA, and I wonder what's going to go on with ICE at the airport.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun.
No. So all of that to say that I think that what has happened is that we've now got a population where the isolation factor and the inability to know what your friends are, like, what are our personal narratives, okay, what is a shared narrative in this country anymore? And so much of that concept has to do with if you're privileged, if you're up to a privilege point and you're not fully cooperating with the system, in the sense that you're not aware that you are feeding militarism and despotism here as it manifests in domestic politics. You're there to keep your head down and not risk losing everything that you have. Right now, if you take that step
in
down,
World War II, they called attentists.
Nice. Boy, you did get an A, didn't you?
It's a great word, though. Right?
It is. But then you have these people who are either going to be apologists for Trump, who have now bought into that narrative that you need a strong leader, right? Same thing with, the Germans were not that different. It was just like after the Treaty of Versailles, all of a sudden there were these punitive sort of things. They really wanted to kick Germany in the stomach for everything that Germany had done with the First World War.
In fairness, that was the standard back at that time, that when you lost a war, you paid reparations.
This, though, check your notes from class. There were things in that there were some other countries that were just like, that's a little too extreme for the population. Because then you end up with this depression, and then you end up basically with these megaphones of disdain being blasted into the country for the citizens of the country, who are then like, we need a megaphone to blast back and talk about the virtues of Germany. And they got a megaphone, with a little square mustache that even took it a few steps beyond that, as we know, right? So you have a disenfranchised population of people who perceive themselves as barely hanging on, who are hitching their wagon to this symbol of strength, which is Trump. Or you have people who are starting to see that is being tarnished and not the way forward, but then they don't know what to do because they still feel alone, and they feel disenfranchised and ineffectual in the fight for sustaining and saving the democracy, which requires participation, and people see now that like any attempts to participate is problematic on so many levels.
I think to add, there's nothing there that I would argue with Fish, but I would also add, just sort of more specifically, the sense of grievance is really crucial to understanding the rise of fascism in the 20th century, right? Like, Italy was destroyed, lost tons of its population in World War I. Germany its economy was wrecked as well as losing the war. And the Germans never understood, especially why they lost the war, because like none of the war had been fought on their territory. How, we invaded France, and then suddenly how is it that we could be told that we lost the war? I mean, they did lose the war. They couldn't sustain it, and they were wrecked economically. But, it was a narrative that was very difficult for them to understand. So, and then the economy gets fucked up. Well, I mean, it's indirectly due to, to the Treaty of Versailles and the reparations. But, actually, they hardly ever paid. What the German government did was to cheat. They deliberately started printing Reichsmarks and paying like in devalued Reichsmarks. And so they fucked up their own economy in order to get out of actually paying. Right. But the bottom line is, it's a sense of grievance by a people who are like, we work hard. There's nothing wrong with being a German or an Italian or an American or whatever. What did we ever do wrong? And also a sense of great traumatic change. I did a genealogy tour of my mother's side of the family in France. And you could go to a church and find all the church records in my family dating back to 1630. There was a church fire in 1630. Presumably they were all the same. All those people had lived in the same village since the Middle Ages, right? World War I, there's trains, there's trucks, there's mobilization, there's automobiles, and people start scattering to the four winds. There's massive dislocation due to technology. And that also was, created all sorts of the destruction of the family as it was understood, and all these. And I think American society is currently going through a massive deterioration of its family structure. Look at this country. It's a third world country. Everyone else has high-speed rail, modernized schools, free college, free healthcare. We don't have shit. Most of the country, 1 out of 4 Americans live in poverty. People are looking for answers, and Donald Trump provides that answer.
Right.
You were fucked over by Latinos and immigrants and woke people and women and trans people. They all fucked you over. And just because you're white and male and cis and straight doesn't mean you're a bad person. And people are like, yay, someone finally said that.
Yeah. And in fact, it's even, I'd even say, just to extend that, it's just like all of the things that you named that are obviously and glaring, about the sort of dystopia, and the dysfunctionality of this country, we're still God's favorite. There's American exceptionalism. There's so even despite the fact that these things are crumbling all around us, there's this arrogance that is just constantly reinforced with the rhetoric, and I would argue largely, mostly, not exclusively on the right, but it is something that does. It allows people to follow sort of the religious tradition of self-flagellation and saying, yes, I'm in pain. Yes, things are bad, but it was bad for Jesus too. But Jesus is special and so am I. And we deserve the respect of excellence, because all of this suffering maybe has a greater purpose for Almighty God. I mean, just look at look at a lot of the talk that's going on around Iran. There's some people who are ecstatic for the apocalypse.
By the way,
yes, they want that. The people who support Israel, who are many of them anti-Semites, are nevertheless Christian nationalists. It's like, we hate Jews personally, and we not the fact that they killed Christ, although they didn't. But we want, but the holy, having this involvement in the Holy Land is going to bring about the end times. Yay, end times.
No, if you've ever read the Book of Revelations, it's not. There's no fun in the end times. It's not like it's great.
It's not. I didn't read it as something to look forward to.
Fingers crossed. I do want to ask again before we get into how do you cartoon all of this. and that's where you guys have even more expertise, and that's the left. Why is it so? Fish, you just said in a few words, you just explained exactly, you answered my question, why this is happening, what the results are, the psychology behind it, the actions behind it. Why is the left so fucking impotent on this? They're having another No Kings March. That'll show them every 3 weeks. I mean, why is the left so impotent on this? Why
That's
can't
not the left?
What would you call it?
Those are corporate Democrats,
Right.
And I think it's very important to understand that the Democratic Party is not, in a Marxist sense, a leftist party. It is not. It's not even a left of center party. It's not a center left party. If you look at European parliamentary democracies, it would not be like the Social Democrats or the French Socialist Party or the Danish Socialist Party. It would be closer to it would be a traditional conservative right party, not a hard right party, but it would be a real right wing party. Don't you think?
Let me ask. Yeah, I would. It's a corporatist party now. It's no question about that.
But I just back on to what you were just saying, because it made me it's very an interesting thing to parse out a little bit, because I think that what Ted said, and I think it's 100% correct, begs the question: why can't the left populate politics with leadership? Where does the power of the left reside?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that not being effective?
Okay, so answer that.
I just said, well, what
do you think? Well, first of all, the left is completely excluded and marginalized from American mainstream political life.
Right.
There is, just think about when there's a foreign policy crisis in the U.S. You go watch any of the major news networks. There will never be someone at the table who's even a pacifist and says,
right,
this is not really our business. We shouldn't be involved.
Right.
Never. Right. So there's no mainstream outlet for, look at Bernie Sanders. 1 out of 4 Americans supported him in the 2016, primary process. Right.
Yeah.
Not a single columnist of any newspaper endorsed Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Not one. There were thousands.
Right. Well, and also I would add on that, and Bernie's a great example, because one of the things when it comes to true left ideology is the eventual dismantlement of hierarchy, right? And sort of the delegitimizing of privilege, right? And especially based on economics, right? It's always going to be unfair. So the idea is just like, how do we create a more level playing field? Now, when you're operating at the level of federal politics, national politics, you can't do that, because things are financed, and you can't piss off power brokers in big business or the moneyed elite, because what you would essentially be saying is just like, all right, why don't you start packing your things and learning how to live a more simple life? That's not going to happen. So much of this corporatized version of the left, which is the Democratic Party, is always about compromising. Where can we compromise so that the aristocrats aren't upset, and neither are the people who are under the boot of the aristocrats? And so then you end up not satisfying anybody. And this goes back to my argument about
that right there is the Democratic Party.
Right. And then that goes back to what I was saying about the middle class, because at one time there was something to broker that, that disparity. And it was a middle class that was somewhat vocal and could have that conversation where, like, I remember when Obama all of a sudden looked like he was going to get the nomination when it was just he and Hillary, right? And then I saw.
Bear in mind, he was not the left-wing candidate in the Democratic primaries. That was John Edwards.
That's true. That's true. But what Obama had was that the history of just being a community organizer and going to be the first Black president, right? So a lot of how he was talking had the echoes of that kind of community building, sort of all of that stuff. As soon as it looked like he had a chance, and I think we remember this, it started to shift. And then I remember when he did get the nomination and he was going against McCain, he started to say things like, speaking of Iran, yes, it's not off the table for I would attack Iran if I needed to, and just like we've got it. So all of a sudden it started to shift, and you could see in this person's eyes, and this is what drives me crazy. Trump's the one person who is, I don't see this with, is that you can see through the strategizing on both sides, you can see how performative it always is, that it's theater. Right. Like when Obama was saying again, just like I'm against gay marriage. Right. See in his face, he's not against gay marriage. I guess you can see it in Trump's face, too, when all of a sudden he's Mr. Pro-life. It's ridiculous.
Or when he's posing with religious figures.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Putting the Bible upside down. Yeah.
So cringe.
Yeah. So again, but
what's your favorite Bible verse? Oh, I love them all.
Yeah, that's the best.
Jesus wept.
So there were people in the middle at one point who were then apologists for that sort of thing. Because I remember having arguments about Obama. And people were like, well, he has to say that to sort of placate. I'm like, how can that be a viable excuse? Because you're essentially saying, all right, he needs to bullshit to get these people to like him, right? That's just a dishonest way to live. Like one of the things I always like to think about is we can have all these conversations about like how the politicians are doing certain things that are reprehensible and dishonest and so forth. What do we do about it? The question to me is always just like, okay, let's just take the politics out of it. Where's decency in here? Why are bad decisions being made? What is it being how are they being rendered in service of human beings or abstract ideas that victimize real human beings on a grand scale, depending on what we're talking about? So it's always important to me and it's always funny. I love talking to, you, Ted, I'm from the left, and Scott, from the more
whatever the hell I am.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to say secretly left, but won't admit it.
Well, my point is just like, listen, we're having
still
sort
in
of
the closet
conversation. If we were all in the same room and we're brothers who got to see each other quite often, I don't know that we would take each other's differing politics to heart in a way that we wanted to punch each other in the face or something. Or just cut off all communication. So that's one of the key things. Like, how do we do that? Because I do think it's possible. There's a lot of, ironically, it's people that I don't really know that I can now have meaningful conversations about them, with them about Trump and about republicanism and so forth. It's the family members who have completely like broken off. But the point is just like, if we can figure out a way to, again, find out what are our personal stories? How can we share our personal stories with each other to see how and why we arrive at the quote unquote politics that we embrace? Because the more and more frank we get about like how certain things exert a certain amount of discomfort or pain among other people, the closer we can get to recognizing the collective that we are, rather than this like smorgasbord of just desperate, wasps just shaken from an agitated nest that have no.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in and say, living down here currently in the south of the United States, the pain is the point in a lot of these politics. So. Yeah. While you're talking about, and I would hope that you were right, but I don't think that you are, that the people would, what's the collective? What's for the betterment, e pluribus unum, what's for the betterment of, out of many one, and I don't think people currently, in at least down here and in other large swatches of America, see it that way. They come back to what you touched on earlier, which is the sense of victimhood, the sense of, the world thinks because I'm a white cis male, I'm evil. And I don't know how you overcome this. I kind of want to move the conversation, nudge it a little bit to you, because you touched on this topic as well, Fish, you're way ahead of us, how do we cartoon about this going forward? We have some examples of our work in the hopper, but you're right. I mean, you can't exaggerate an exaggeration. It's almost impossible. So when you see, I'm trying to think back on cartoons, opposition cartoons during the rise of Hitler, not just in Germany, but in France.
Yeah, like Simplicissimus and those publications.
Right. I mean, so how did they portray this? And you can ridicule them, but the ridicule at some point, light ridicule, like the famous anti-Nazi cartoon of the duck with the ropes coming off of it and all the other guys behind him goose stepping.
Right.
I mean, it's a hilarious cartoon and it is demeaning, but at some point, as they're goose stepping down your street, it ceases to be like, oh, that's funny. No, wait.
Well, you can be funny and dark. I mean, dark humor is of course a thing. I mean, one of my favorite cartoons from that period is who you guys will know this about the Ribbentrop-Molotov pact between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany.
Best cartoon.
Describe, please.
It's Hitler and Stalin doffing their hats to each other, standing over the corpse of Poland, isn't it? Or was it Eastern Europe? I think it's Poland. And one is saying, Ted, help me with the verbiage here, because it's something like
something along the lines of like, nice to meet you, communist dog. And it's like, and it's like Stalin's like, the murderer of the workers, I presume.
Yes.
But I'm not doing it justice.
Yeah.
No, it's really a brilliant cartoon. The other one is a cartoon from the masses from the First World War, which is this huge, burly, human form and shirtless in front of an army doctor with no head. Say, the perfect soldier.
Right. That's Art Young. Yeah. And the other amazing, great cartoon from the masses that he did was the wanted poster with Jesus on it, which he got a great deal of trouble for. I mean, it's amazing. You should definitely look that one up, because what he does is he's wanted for, fraternizing with the poor and the meek and the needy. He basically says what the story of Jesus is, blatantly unpoliticized, and he also wounds on his hands, purportedly from abuse from, government officials or something, all of this stuff. And again, it's casting basic humanity from the story of Jesus in a way that was not ridiculing the Bible in any way. It was actually amplifying what that story was about. And he got in such trouble because, if you remember, that's when the Espionage Act was drafted to people were being encouraged by publications.
There it is.
Yeah. And Ted, look up the Jesus one. I'm just very curious.
So who was this? Was this also?
It's also Art Young. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because there was this, obviously the First World War was a ridiculous idea. So there were certain publications that were saying, don't enlist. It's a bad idea. And the Espionage Act all of a sudden made that criminal, and they actually shut down the masses. And Art Young was facing some jail time, for that.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and he just defended himself by just saying, I was just working in service of the public good.
Is this the Rights of Labor one?
No, it's a picture. Okay. It's Jesus, and then it says wanted, and then you'll see.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So as a cartoonist, I mean, there are clearly, they've always been left of center cartoonists. I'd say a vast majority of them. I think that's safe to say. And they're calling this fascism. They're calling this they're saying the war is stupid, and it is. But it doesn't seem to have the same power and the same heft that these cartoons had. Maybe they're just not as vehemently opposed to these policies. I can't figure out as a cartoonist what. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Wanted for sedition, criminal anarchy, vagrancy, and conspiracy to overthrow the established government. Dresses poorly. I love that.
Had to be a carpenter by trade. Visionary ideas, associates with common working people, the unemployed, and bums. And then his aliases are even great. Prince of Peace.
Go ahead.
Son of Man, Light of the World. It says he's a professional agitator. Redbeard, marks on hands and feet, the result of injuries inflicted by an angry mob led by respectable citizens and legal authorities.
It's awesome.
It's so perfect. And remember, so one thing that we have to consider as well is when we're talking about cartoonists from the past, particularly from this time, they were working in conjunction with a much more healthy and vibrant journalism that was going on at that time.
Yeah.
And there were also, so we also, by virtue of the fact that there was also, I would argue, much better education in schools as far as our history and what our civics should teach us about what it means to be a citizen and so forth. So there was this greater understanding of what our history was, what our responsibilities are living in a democracy. And so, again, these cartoonists were producing work in publications that had much deeper dives into what our history was and what our current circumstance is in the world.
Oh, here's Ted and Jesus.
My ice cartoon.
One Roman soldier saying to the other, "This is what you get when you get in the way of law enforcement." And the other soldier is saying, "Surely this wouldn't have happened had he remained in Nazareth and stuck to carpentry."
Perfect. Yeah, we can even ruin it. And now here's Fish's cartoon of Jesus nailed to a cross in bed with a woman, and he's saying, "Sorry, baby, not tonight. I got to rise up early tomorrow."
God.
That's awesome.
We shouldn't be laughing.
We should show some cartoons, some of our own, besides mine. Okay, so let's see. Let's start. You're the guest, so obviously
Let's start with our guest, of
you get
course.
to go first, of course. All right, here we go. Oh shit! No, that's
God,
not
your
it.
work looks a lot like Ted's.
No, that's not true. Here we go. Let me get rid of this. Sorry, this is. If you saw what I had to deal with here, there we go.
Oh, yeah. Nice. So as you can see, this is a hours-long painting of naked Trump
Ugh.
with
Why?
written
It's
on
making me
his,
horny.
it says written on his stomach, "The emperor has no soul." And again, this one is only a couple days old, and this is an example of me rendering out of pure frustration with just the world politics and just looking for a cliche. You know, the emperor has no clothes, and I'm like, how do I apply that? Well, this emperor has no soul. So let me do what.
How did you render that, by the way? Is this? It almost looks like oil. Is this?
It's actually it's acrylic.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it hard to justify spending a lot of time on a cartoon? I find like it's really if I have to spend like hours and hours on a cartoon because it's complicated, I kind of resent it nowadays because I know almost no one will see it the way that they used to, or at least hardly any people will pay for it. Let's put it that way.
That's true. And it's funny because, and this is a great example because of course I put it up on Instagram immediately.
And people look at it for 5 seconds and like, oh, good cartoon. Next.
It was up for just over 24 hours. Got like 300 plus comments.
Oh, I bet.
Hundreds of thousands of views. Was going.
How many shares? I'm going to bet there was all over the
hundreds, especially, you know, as we approached the No Kings March, there were people who saying that they wanted to print it, you know, for the march. And then of course it was taken down like an hour before I jumped on with you guys. And then I always put something up that has a censorship bar across and says, to see the, you know, complete uncensored version, go to clowncrack.com, you know, my site. So, and then people share with me, I shared the original version of this and I got, you know, slapped down by Instagram too, you know, and then the fist emoji. Like, again, excellent. Is it real activism? It's sort of the best we have right now, I suppose.
It's what we've got. Yeah.
Yeah. I love this one. It's Trump from behind. He's pantsless. He's either peeing or
shitting out of his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like that too. It says the longer we wait without doing anything, the more likely it is there will be nothing left worth saving. And
but we're not going to do anything.
No, but
we can't do anything because there's no, I hate to say this. People keep saying like, oh, we need a national strike. Okay, you can't have a national strike until the final stages of a revolution. Okay, we need to build toward revolution. How are you going to do that? You need an organized socialist or similar left-wing mass movement. Well, beside that, there's no beside that. There is no beside that. And yeah. I mean, and you know, honestly, the biggest threat to American democracy or whatever freedom, whatever you want to fucking call it, that we have is the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party has carefully made it impossible for left-wing voices who could fucking lead us out of this to get any traction, to make our arguments to the American people, to organize, to run candidates for local or state or national office. They have censored us. I mean, just think about it. I mean, is there any world in which like Fish is going to win a Pulitzer Prize? No fucking way. Can't be allowed.
Yeah.
Is there any world in which he's going to be invited to be on MS Now, the left-wing cable station? No. Will Bill Maher have him on? No. Will Rachel Maddow have him on?
Oh,
No.
God, no.
Will he be invited to contribute to the op-ed page of the Washington Post, the left-wing Washington Post? No. I mean, and it's like, if he runs for local office, there in the DC Metro, or will he be, will the Democratic Party not shiv him? No. I mean,
well, there's a couple ways to, and I know exactly what you're saying, although I think there is one thing remaining that can be done, because in many ways what you're asking for is you're asking for help from the system.
Right. I had this conversation with Stephanie McMillan one time. I was complaining about awards.
Yeah.
And she's like, what would you do if you and I, Ted, were in charge of the country and like there were right wingers who were criticizing us the way that we criticized them? I said, I'd send them to a camp or maybe have them executed. And she goes, all things considered, they're pretty nice to us.
Yeah, right. But if you look at it this way, because I do agree, I think that one key thing that if you're talking about the mobilization of a political movement, you do need some connection to labor, right?
Yeah.
That's the absolute. That's pre-organized. That is, it's sort of, it would be, if you're thinking of something that would be easiest to galvanize, it's already sort of set up for that. And we see it demonstrated all the time in other countries, where all of a sudden the dock workers and the unions, they're just like, we will not send munitions to Israel, right? Because it's wrong, right? So then so the activism is linked with the labor movement over there. So one of the things that, since that's sort of like unlikely in this country right now, because it just doesn't seem to be likely, the one yowling emptiness that needs to be filled, and I know we talked about this last time, is the cultural movement aspect. Because if you look at what happened with the civil rights movement, for example, right, just as a movement that actually helped society and helped, and then ultimately helped, changed legislation. There were politicians that tagged themselves to the movement after a time, but it was organized and maintained and perpetuated by normal people who got behind it, and then by cultural leaders who knew how to sort of like frame the message outside of the political rendering of messaging, which is always, people have to take with a grain of salt. So you had the arts community and you had public intellectuals who were able to speak much more bluntly, much more frankly, because they didn't have a agenda that was tied into power brokers, nor did they have to feel like that they were afraid of losing their status somehow. So I would argue what is necessary now, and the thing that gets me up.
Well, there were also more fellow travelers, though, right? I mean, like I saw in the 90s when I was in the op-ed page of the Times a lot, my editors, secretly, they were socialists, and they just couldn't admit it. And they were what they would have been called fellow travelers in the 50s.
Right.
And those people were still around in the 50s and 60s, where they were embedded in newspapers and other powerful institutions, including the churches. They've been purged.
Yeah, they've been purged. But again, this all comes to just think about just the terminology. They've been purged by people who have told them that there are repercussions for going against authority figures, Right?
And they've been laid off. Like when there are
Yeah,
layoffs,
That's it.
That's the penalty. So that's what I mean. There was a time
they didn't survive the layoffs. Those people were the first to go.
Right. But it's still, again, we have got to either say once and for all, is there a middle class? What is defined as the middle class? Can the middle class sustain itself? Like at least me and Ted, Scott, you've got like a legitimate job, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's, and Ted, I mean, I'm guessing that you're sort of like me, that there is a lot of just piecemealing together some sort of life, right? But totally. What does that do?
That's been my life forever.
It's been my life forever too. And so and I continue to do it because I think it's the right way to proceed, right? And I really think that if we can encourage people to recognize that the discomforts that like you and I face, they're manageable. And they're also a reflection of just saying, you know what, we've got sufficient shit givery to not surrender to, to a lifestyle that endangers the marginalized and the dispossessed. Literally, it's. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I was just going to throw in and jump in and talk about, effective protest. This, like I said, I'm mocking the No Kings protest because it warrants mocking. But I'm thinking, I grew up.
Literally, guys, we are in week 4 of a war against the biggest country the United States has gone to war against since World War II, with a 27% approval rating, and there hasn't been a single anti-war protest of any significance in the entire United States.
Right.
And there isn't even one planned.
And think about this. There were anti-Vietnam War protests beginning in 1966. People forget that there was this growing like, oh, we don't want another Korea. Right. At the end of this thing, we were hoping it was Korea. If the Paris Peace Accords finally kicked in 1973, think about that. That is 7 years of growing protests, especially fall after 1968. You had protests I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, near the UW campus. They had at least 3 or 4 protests a week.
Kettering, Ohio, there were protests every fucking day in the middle of Far Hills Avenue with like half a dozen or a dozen very sad, often very wet and very cold protesters on the median strip. Kettering, Ohio, every fucking day. Sustained protest is a huge thing.
Right.
Yeah. And so you hear, well, I went to the No Kings protest. Well, that's great.
Conveniently scheduled for alternating for one Saturday every, weather allowing. Every when everybody's off from work. I literally have had this argument with lefties who are like, well, you can't ask people to take off from work. Oh no, we can't do that. I mean, you're so right. Oh, God forbid.
If you don't protest, then the work will take off from you, by the way, just letting you know, workers, this isn't, I don't understand where's the leadership on the left, the true left, the left as you guys would define it? Well, why not you guys? And I'm being serious.
It's first of all, I don't know about Fish. I'm not an organizer. It's not my strong suit. I don't have the personality for it. I really admire people who do it. It's not my thing. I think I'm doing what I am least bad at, I think. What about you?
Well, I also think that that's a kind of leadership, though. Because what you're doing with your work is you're inviting people into a conversation that they may not have had either, outside with other people or even internally inside their own heads. You're presenting challenges to, what is often reflexive thinking on their part. They haven't considered these things, right? You're offering an alternative narrative for them to consider, right? Mm-hmm. That to me, that's, if you can call it anything, that's a sort of a political act.
Totally.
Yeah, so
I'm not saying you guys aren't being political.
No, but I know
in terms of getting people out into the streets and
right. You're talking about how do we get people organized in such a way.
Also, it's a young person's game, Scott. It really is.
Oh, I know.
Partially, I mean, I would say it's a young person's game when it comes to creating the inertia, and creating the size necessary to make it viable.
Yeah.
And if it is a young person's game, what attracts young people into a circumstance like that? They need a soundtrack. They need a wardrobe. They need
Yeah, it's got to be fun.
Language. It has
One of the big accusations was that a lot of people went to left-wing protests to get laid.
Exactly.
Great.
Right. Yeah,
whatever gets you there.
Summer's coming. Yeah, opportunity for young people to just like strip down. Let's have another Woodstock. Right. All of that that whole idea again comes from not just a sole political movement, but recognizing that you're not so alone. So that's the one thing that I would say. I don't want to disparage the No Kings marches, because it takes momentum to build these things. As you said, Scott, with the first protest marches, 66, I had heard that it was 67, but the same sort of thing. All the precursors to get up to that was all the writing and the criticism of the war started really in like 1964, right? So all of a sudden, so that language had to move through how you take in that.
Yeah, things start with the Port Huron statement. That's 1964. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the free speech movement at Berkeley, which people always think was later than it really was.
Yeah. So you got and again. So I mean, so much of what Mario Savio was talking about was just the ability to actually communicate, dissent out loud at a moneyed institution that is feeding the war machine, right? And again, that's just a responsibility that we have as human beings. So again, like with the No Kings March, I do 100% agree with you. It's just like.
I'm sorry.
The flow.
What I like about Fish is his subtlety.
This is for those just listening. It's a Vote Republican poster. It's a little girl with a would you call that an S&M gag? I'm not sure what
ball gag.
And ball gag, and on the ball is Trump's face. That is, and she's wearing a T-shirt that says Epstein Island. This is brilliant. This is just friggin' brilliant. This is one of those cartoons. I gotta say, this is Ted's cartoons.
Jack Owen would call this a Jesus Christ cartoon. You look at it, and you go, Jesus Christ,
which is exactly should be the point, and that's where Fish's work is so phenomenal. And that's that cartoon and Ted's cartoons do the exact same thing. Is they take you past that's quaint. Oh yeah, okay, that's a point. To holy fuck,
right.
Which should be where the cartoons take you. Mine don't do that. I'll be the first to admit it. Oh, this is Mr. Fish, child by a well. What is left to say about a world where even our wishes need to be prepaid?
That's awesome.
Oh, I love the style.
That's amazing.
That looks like an Art Young kind of.
What I love about that cartoon, I do like the fact that you have a bunch of different drawing styles, which obviously I don't. But I love the fact that. What that's taking is something that you never think of as political, like a wishing well, and then like seeing the politics in it and using it as a critique of capitalism at a base level and the innocence of childhood being corrupted. That's amazing.
Thanks. Let me ask you guys real quick. Cartoon, when it comes to cartooning, and like I just admitted, I'm one of them because I'm paid by a corporation, but you guys do cartoons that remind me of Art Young. I can't remember. There was also an African American. Was it Harrington?
Yeah.
Who in their lifetimes, made no money. They struggled like crazy to survive. And okay, this is like I said. This is one of those instances. This is one of my cartoons coming up. It says it's Trump's. With "I want you for the draft," which he's floated the idea of this. He's just grabbing Uncle Sam, who's dressed like a kid. Yeah. I had harder hitting ones. I actually had Trump throwing people into a meat grinder, which I thought was better. But of course, the editor chose this one. But my point is,
there is talk about the draft now.
Yeah. Oh no, that's what spurred this cartoon. But my point to you guys is that you guys have always been on the kind of cartoons that history is going to look back on and go, "Wow, these are amazing." They're not going to look back on mine.
Yeah, that's going to really help me, pay my.
I recognize that, but I'm wondering. But that's my point: is that in terms of cartooning, Art Young struggled his whole career, and he was clearly a great cartoonist and a great mind. Oh. But so, how do you get from point A to point B? This is Trump opening up Pandora's box, saying, "Ooh, gold plated." I'm wondering if I didn't really need the word plated, did I? They could have just said, "Ooh, gold." Because
No, I like the plated.
I'm not.
do you like the plated?
I like
Plated's a
plated.
funny word too, but you also look at what he's done to. He's done more to the Oval Office every time.
Yeah.
It's like seems like every other day you look at it, it looks more and more like a French whorehouse. It's just like holy
Yeah.
fuck. Is he
Yeah.
going to have a real like a brass four-poster bed?
Or Dolomite's house. It's awesome.
Oh God, it's awful. It's just god awful. But as cartoons, I mean, I say this with all due. Oh, this is a local cartoon. There's under construction, and United and American have said that they're they're having sure they're going to pull back. They're going to so guys in a tower, and they're surrounded by planes at Ord, which is the main airport in Chicago. Says, just think of us as the Kennedy Expressway of the sky. And the Kennedy Expressway has been under construction. It's supposed to be 2 years. This will shock you guys. It's supposed to be a 2-year, $500 million project. It's now a 8-year, $2.5 billion project. I know you're shocked to learn that somehow government, they lied to us yet again. I'm coming back to my question. Why aren't you guys, and I don't understand why cartoons like Art Young in his lifetime and other cartoonists who were actually out there saying things that needed to be said in a way that was forceful. Why does that never get traction in your lifetime? Yeah, when you guys are dead, you guys are going to be in history books. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
If so,
I think a lot of it has to do with, for Ted and I to receive the money that we deserve. Typically, that stuff comes from, where does capital typically flow from? There's no real moneyed people who are going to, unless they privately buy like our originals, but they're certainly not going to champion the work that we do. Because again, ultimately what we're asking for,
required to take a chance, right? You'd need like an edit. You need it. Honestly, what we do need is an editor or a producer to say, I'm going to run these guys. Honestly, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, I used to be in the New York Times, and the New York Times didn't become Pravda. Nothing happened. Right? Yeah. I mean, so like, you could run Fish, you could run me, and like in Time and in the Washington Post, nothing would happen. And they could just take a chance and just support it.
That's the chance. Want to. Kind of, I would say that nothing would, I would say something has the potential to happen then.
Sure.
Because really what we're saying is just like, we would want to demand more thoughtful commentary and invite deeper conversations about the stuff that we address with our cartooning.
Totally.
Now, if you do that, then what starts to happen is you start to delegitimize the stranglehold that power has over a population. They're not going to let that happen. And there's another example of that, of a cartoonist who, Scott, who we have to mention, is Ron Cobb, who did work in the 60s.
Yes.
And he's another one that he couldn't make a buck. And he's a guy who I'll occasionally run across a new Ron Cobb, and I'm just like, shit, it's so appropriate for now. And it's so good. And he ended up having to work for, movies, designing spaceships and stuff for I don't know if it was Battlestar Galactica or Lucas or somebody, but that's how he just stopped cartooning, because he couldn't support himself.
Have you ever held a Cobb original?
No. Do you have one?
I don't, but a friend, actually Bill Shore, a cartoonist who kind of mentored me in the profession, he had one, and it had, Cobb used so much whiteout. This is back in the day when it was all analog and all ink on paper, but he had so much whiteout on it, it actually added weight to the paper.
That's awesome. What Reuben Bowling, Tom the Dancing Bugs originals are like.
Really?
Yeah.
Tons and tons of whiteout, like insane.
This is America 250. It's a rendering of the sign of the old painting of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, except they're all beating the living shit out of each other. And my favorite part of the whole cartoon is John Adams body slamming somebody. It just made me giggle.
It's a great cartoon.
There's a lot of fun details. Busy. Take a look. Yeah, oh God, that was one. That was, as Ted mentioned at the top of the show, that was one of those cartoons you get. That's the one they approve, and you go, fuck. It's gonna take me forever to draw this guy.
Not the crowd scene, no.
Well, we got to get going. We've run over.
We
Fish,
do.
Thanks again, man.
We have time for mine?
Of course.
You're like,
always,
of course,
Ted.
That would be great. Okay, all right, here we go. Mine are all right. We'll brace through them quickly. These are just from last week. I haven't done this week's yet. Well, I've done them. I just haven't inked them.
Ted may be the fastest cartoonist in the West. That's for sure.
So here's two people talking. Iran is evil. So if they get the chance, they'll develop a nuclear weapon. If they get a nuke, they'll develop long-range missiles. If they do that, they'll put their nuke on their ICBM. If they succeed, they'll fire that nuke at us. If they aim at us, they'll kill millions of us. If that happens, they'll laugh so hard. And then this person on the left points out, North Korea doesn't use its nuclear weapons. They don't have the ifs. And
this week.
Yeah, I'm just trying to point out the fact that, like, we utilize psychological projection in American foreign policy. Like,
Right.
it's like, all right, here we go. Here's another one.
Well, things that are empirically not true, but
so this is people watching a mother with her two kids watching TV. It's the war. This is a weird show. You're supposed to cheer for the bad guys. And I thought that was important to point out. I mean, like,
You didn't read what was on the screen.
Pardon? Oh yeah. So what's on the
Gee.
screen? So what's on the screen? Go back. No. Add to stage.
Go back.
All right. U.S. attacks Iran, the Strait of Hormuz. Trump slaughters 175 kids, blames Iran, thousands dead.
Right.
And so, I mean, look, the thing is, we're supposed to, when our country starts a war, we are supposed to say, even if we oppose the war, we're supposed to say, but we hope that things go well for our troops. That doesn't make sense. That's like being in Germany and being a socialist and opposing Nazism, and then saying, well, I do hope that they kick major ass against those Poles.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's wish our boys
no
good luck in the
I hope
Sudetenland.
I hope the Poles win, and I hope the Iranians win here. I do. Yeah. I'll be Hanoi Jane here.
Well, I think they are.
I'll be Tehran Ted. I've got alliteration going for it. Yeah, they are winning. It's true. Yeah. And last but and I guess last and least, we will cover this one. This is for tomorrow. We should never have attacked Iran. They weren't a threat, and they're resilient. Now they really will mess with us, and they really will build nuclear weapons. We turned the fake threat into a real threat. So now they're really pissed at us and really dangerous. Trump goes, I'll call them and try to make nice. No, Bibi Netanyahu says, let's attack again. Trump's like, you have the best ideas.
Oh, God.
Poor Bibi. God, a little genocide and everyone's down your throat.
A little genocide never killed anyone.
Jesus.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, Fish, for joining us. It was fantastic. Hope you'll come back.
Oh, always. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Scott, always a pleasure.
Work. Okay.
It's
opening day. It's opening day, by the way. So we got baseball. We still
all
have
right.
baseball.
So are we blessed with your singing prowess in the closing?
Yes. Let's demean Scott even more.
3, 2, 1, and away we go.
Go Cubs, go. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? Cubs are gonna win today. Go Cubs, go. Go Cubs, go. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? Cubs are gonna win today. Go Cubs.